Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an evening of poetry and music. I'll just take a few minutes to introduce our poet tonight. Iowa native Corinne Stanley. She's a writer, an educator, collage artist. She's always had a deep connection to the mysteries of the natural and the spiritual world. As a young child growing up in Washington, Iowa, she spent her days picking strawberries, peas, climbing trees, I can picture that, and frequently hopped on a bike to traverse the dirt roads that led out of the small town into her beloved nature. As a teenager, she continued her love affair with the outdoors by spending 9 summers, I'm sure they were hot summers, helping pollinate corn in the Northup kind experimental fields managed by her corn breeder father. Later in life, she moved to Mexico and Ecuador, where the crisp light of the region and the scintillating colors formed the landscape for her writing and her artwork. Corinne has published one collection of poetry, They Say This Is Light, a volume which exposits her profound respect and passion for the Mexican culture. In addition, she has written a memoir, Daughter of Corn, Coming of Age in the Americas. A preview of this work is found in Iowa Heritage Illustrated 2012. Corinne's poems have been published in numerous journals. Before returning to the University of Iowa to complete a master's in Spanish, Corinne was a facilitator for a bilingual translation workshop in San Miguel de Allende, and she was a Spanish-English translator for the International Writing Program under Clark Blaze at the University of Iowa. Corinne currently resides in Iowa City. She works in Iowa City. She's the staff language and culture facilitator at the Human Resources Department of the University of Iowa. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce the poet, mi profesora and mi amiga, Corinne Stanley.
Thank you, Sonatina. I work with Sonatina in the Department of Human Resources, where I teach Spanish, as I don't think that was in the bio, as I did to a few people here. And thank you for coming to this reading. I hope you enjoy it. I think the combination of words and music is really spectacular in any form. And I so appreciate Joy Clark, who is a fabulous musician, who will be playing 3 different instruments. As you can see, she has the dulcimer on her lap, she has a harp to her side, and a 300-year-old fiddle in a case there. So Joy is a local musician who also attends the same church that I attend, and I have some of those people here too. So thank you. I just really appreciate you coming. I actually decided to publish this book. It is, sorry, Breathe Into the Knowing, and it is a combination of poetry and collage work, as you can see. Because I began to do collages actually when I was teaching in Washington, Iowa, and I continued on that journey and have loved doing it. And so the combination of words and art and music to me is, again, something very astounding. I took about 10 years to revise this poetry book, and someone said, "Oh, I thought you were going to read from your memoir," because that's actually why I quit my teaching job originally, which I did write, but then my mother just passed in August, and it was like I don't know, I connect this book with my mom, not because consciously she had anything to do with it, but I decided that evening I had this conversation with my mom. I thought, I was up in Minnesota in a cabin. I'm going to publish this book. And then the next morning my mom died. And I've manifested this, and so I think that because of that has special meaning. And I did dedicate the book to a lot of to a number of women who I felt influenced me in the book. I don't want to talk too much about it, and I'm not actually going to talk about the poetry that much. It's because the music and the poetry together really are, it's like a story. And there are a lot of narrative poems. I will say it has 4 sections. The first section is Sojourner on the Prairie. And then it moves on after a lot of narrative, often nature-oriented poems to a section on war. It's called Releasing the Question, because the journey to me is a spiritual journey, and there's that loss of innocence. And of course, war is the big loss of innocence when we are confronted with that in our lives in any way. And along that, with that section, Releasing the Question, Joy had written a song just by chants about war called Colonna Nocturne. Nocturne, she told me to pronounce it that way. Anyway, and that will lead into that section. And then I will finish with a section called Dust and Light, which is the idea of transcendence and through nature again. So it begins with nature. You get this sort of layering of reality, and then there's this idea of transcendence. And like I said, I don't want to talk too much when I do read the poems, but I think I'm extremely influenced by Latin American poetry. There is this idea of nature and transcendence. For instance, in Pablo Neruda's Residencia en la Tierra. And I just love Cesar Vallejo. I am not comparing myself to these people. I have translated some of those poems, but I feel that this is, the imagery, the idea of color, the idea of finding redemption through nature is strongly in this book. So, in your hands and feet, don't be afraid. You are not alone. God is in your hands and feet. There now, let go. God is in your hands and feet. I had a dream. From the dream came the shout. From the shout came the mystery. From the mystery came God. I clapped my hands and flew. The asking. Ask me again if I break open the fruits of ordinary words, place them on the hungry tongue. Ask me if I scope the brilliant mirror for more than prurient imagination. Perhaps the incomprehensible birdsong that colors dawn with bright longing, or a persistent lullaby that pulls down the bone-weary night. But ask me if my heart took a sudden leap to when freedom was an airy room, a stony road leading to the succulent garden. Ask me about the weeping pools, which gather solace for love not brave enough to be made. A dried rose sleeps dreamless beside a pillow. A roaming wind unearths roots sunk in the flat prairie. Ask me, and the light pouring from your mouth will make these shadows disappear. Naming. My mother's roses hugging the house, the willow trees flowing in reverent cascades, the pencils in my father's plaid shirt pocket, my sister's pink plastic rollers on the wooden dresser, her bottle of white shoulders next to my taboo, My brother's dented coronet lying on his bed, the green and brown pool table in the basement, my father's duck decoys in the basement, the trunk with his uniform and medals in the basement, how it flooded, how the unspoken words rose up from the floor like a sojourner looking for the light. Face up. Dick Kaler and the butler girl leaned against an old battered Chevy, hands clasped in a rosary of affection, heads tilted up toward the star-studded sky. The evening smelled of lingering jasmine, caught in shadowy corners, and my adolescent yearning floated into the air like spindly milkweed seeking a home. Later, at the drive-in theater, sprawled upon the massive hood of Patty's Impala, I watched Romeo and Juliet, held my breath while love trembled. During intermission, children in printed pajamas scrambled on the merry-go-round. Patty and Julie giggled about the Seiko boys, while I lay face up to the prairie sky and pleaded with the future to break open my untested heart. "13. I was 13 when I first walked the fields with Jana. We filed into the towering aisles, flat fannies tucked into cutoffs, long blue work shirts flapping at the knees. The second day, we came upon spiders the size of our fists, sprawled in black and yellow defiance across the dewy rows. Squealing with terror, we ran to our bikes parked on the road and left the fields unworked. My father's fury burned like the fiery midday sun and spun us back before the day ended. Mocking our girlish fright, he plowed into the wicked webs with a quick, manly stride. There, he said, nothing to it. Our mothers came after he left and walked with us until the light faded into gray indifference. In the evening, we clung to our flowered pillows, dreamed of colored spiders caught in a glass jar. Daughters. Lyndon Johnson's daughter walked into the ocean, trailed by frustrated bodyguards. She wanted proof of her freedom. She got her picture in the paper and lost her father's approval instead. All the little girls who were tired of the 50s applauded. Today, their daughters play rock and roll, have pierced noses and purple hair. Now, I'm a 70s girl myself. Though I've been to the mysterious Galapagos and climbed Huayna Picchu in Peru, I still come back to the only land where I can lose and find myself at the same time. When I walk into the prairie woodlands, it's the deer who take my picture with their large, translucent eyes. My father's dead, and I never really had his approval anyway. So I disappear into sun and tree and wind. They take me in a tender way, and for a moment, I am the daughter of every living thing. Treasures. Once, I carried my hair from the Bajío of Mexico to the outskirts of Washington, Iowa. I planted the strands like narrow seeds into the rich prairie soil. Within 2 years, the cobblestone streets that once diminished the thin soles of my huaraches were replaced by the fragrant woodlands of my youth. When I was a child, I found 3 white balls in the waters of a Minnesota lake. I took them to my grandfather, and we buried the soft turtle eggs deep into the burning sand. What is feigned, known, unknown? What harbors the in-between of our past and future lives? My grandfather's wife, buried too soon. My father, buried sad. Dreams buried in the receding light. All the dark and restless needs that hum and sing low, waiting for the shimmering sun to give us strength to grow. Measuring like Rumi, a famous Persian poet. I'm trying to figure out what animal I have become to yearn so deeply for the shedding of something old like winter fur, feathers worn in flight. I am trying to measure the distance from when I first twirled in the rain, mud a joyful splattering on my feet. Cars, phones, TVs, toasters, and a plastic box, take my hand and let us go into the meadows like this. Ta-dum, ta-dum, like this. We're still on the same section, but we have rain stick now. Okay. The fields of autumn. I travel from the 5 rivers to a city of trees. Here, under my left breast, a tear awakens. 1. Yesterday, the wind flailed her arms, a gypsy twirling over the land. Today, nothing. The dry, crisp fields hold empty spaces in stillness. I marvel at the ochre leaves. I yearn to know the secret message of form. 2. The corn is cut. The land is flat. A lonely sound murmurs across the vast blue. Inside my chest, a soft clapping. Wings ready to take flight. 3. Fall tolls a warning, shakes leaves into lonely flight. I look through smudged windows for a sign of sun. Somewhere a child sleeps in near abandonment. Somewhere she traces the moon's mouth. She calls a name. It echoes, a tiny chime in the wind. For a moment, the sun weaves a lemon light through bundles of branches. Leaves shift and sigh, lonely sentinels ready to fly, for the cold comes close. The wind sounds a far cry. Rocked between seasons, you long for the luminous days of summer, which carried your innocence loosely like a scarf, waving wildly in the breeze. This before winter tears at the seams of your heart. This color, this aroma, this tender moment, drink in, ingest. Make certain it is yours to keep. For the avalanche of white forgetfulness is coming. Now we're going to hear a poem, or a song by Joy. Okay, this is the second section of the book called Releasing the Question. Confession. Money is money, whoopee, I'd rather be farming. Lars Brownlee, ex-farmer, now a security worker. Once I was riding in an Ecuadorian bus, one of those shaky contraptions that stops on narrow mountain roads every 20 minutes. A tiny woman, hidden in a black woolen shawl, heaved herself on board. Her felt derby tumbled to the floor when she sat next to the chauffeur and faced me. Tears began to crawl down her rigid face. The man standing by her side said, "We are going to Guayaquil to work in the factories." So this is where the heart stops, Lars. This is when something solid collapses, becomes flat like that husband's eyes, and you have to ask yourself, is this progress? Maybe the past wasn't so bad. You could wake up to the cool morning, plant your feet on the solid earth instead of going to the steamy city to feed the young ones. That's why you did it, Lars. We know it wasn't for the money. Whoopee. It's always for the children. But what will you say when years later they wake up to the naked howl of anonymity? What will you say when they tell you that the sun rose like a yellow yawn into a petrified sky? What will you say then, Farmer Brownlee? aftermath. Here comes sorrow. I thought she'd left to chew on other matters, not my unaware heart. Here comes anguish. She carries a pillow to lay me down lightly, and guess who just showed up? It's Fooled again. All decked out in spangles and silky things. Silly girl, you missed the party. Though we'll do our best to include you in the aftermath. These are dangerous times. I hear so much, and I'm worn out from searching deception's shadows. He's a mean one, I tell you, because he looks so good until the light shines. The metal fear. Winter is the frozen mother, her lucent breath, a lone movement heaving against your wooden door, and the house talks back in eerie cracks, as if the burden were too solid for her four corners. Quivering inside with one thought heavier than the frigid air, you push against the metal fear of war and weep. To you, those angels, September 11th, 2001. The sky, blue presses against the back of my eyelids, folds my bones under my heart. The sky breaks and sorrow scatters like black rain. The towers. If I jump, will I grow gossamer wings, loosen the fire of my skin, or will I become a voice, grabbing the wind like a pillow before darkness pulls me in with a cold steel hand? The search. These pilgrims make no progress, searching the stinking debris for the remains of their love. 40 hospitals wait for 3,000 pictures, while the unborn wait in a starless night. This journey will not end. These pilgrims must find the treasure. Everyone knows this. Everyone, especially the dead. The beginning. Lost. Sitting in a room with no light, we asked, when do the engines roar? Freedom. Who says freedom? A soldier wrapped in camouflage, a pregnant widow without solace, a child sold for a kilo of grain, a young girl hidden inside the blue tent of belief. I am the American press. I pretend knowledge. I am the global culture. I forfeit the heart. I am the oil magnet. I am the bank vault. I am the weapons factory. I am the invasion of freedom. Dawn breaks. We are dreaming in the house of muteness. And then, who says freedom? Who? As we speak, students in Venezuela are being shot in the head, just so you know. 3 days. Suddenly, a bird. Suddenly, a bird sings in the plain morning of winter. A tone so pure my light shivers. I must learn the secrets of winter. Bend close into the breathing. When cold numbs my silver bones, salvation may come in the tiny fluttering of wings. Okay, that is our ending of that section, and now we're finishing with the transcendence, which is called Dust and Light. White bird, fly. Every utterance is a prayer. Every word is my petition, my coins at the altar. When I speak, my breath lights the darkness, and I am not afraid. I have found the silk cloth among the tatters. I have reached the golden fields across the mire, and my fingers have let go of the immensity of silence. Let go of hidden corridors, nodding in shadows. This, so the tiny white bird can go sailing, can rise above the flashing sea and discover a trembling, an eruption of long-lasting prayer. Dust and light. Do we come from dust or light? Do we push ourselves up from the dense earth or drop out of the high blue in a stream of brilliant light? I dreamt of a woman who wore an intricate crown of light. A voice said, "This is you," and I startled myself into the being I've become. If you think life is too ordinary, tell yourself that you took courage when you stepped into the womb and entered the tunnel of darkness. Remember the redbird that woos the morning, the loping deer which seizes the wind, and breathe into the knowing. Live enormously, without pity or regret, like the galaxy of stars, scintillating light through the billowing dust. Living the metaphor of light. Pillar of light, aura and halo, star, sun, flame. The complexity of eyes, the refraction of water and sun, the moment between dusk and day, when grass gains a deeper tone. Passing through the countryside, your breath turns inward. Perhaps you are the stretching corn or the wildflowers laughing yellow in the fields. A bird suddenly flaps her dark wings, ignites what is ancient solvent. You undulate with the breeze, carry the round form of land inside your heart. Disappointments rise into the sun's mouth, crumble in a fire of forgiveness, and then you grasp this astounding moment when the tomes of the earth open wide the pages of day. Dear God, even the worms know when to bow. into the wind like a seed. There are no secrets, just you and the great love you might someday give. The world in its slow, methodical turning, the possibility of sun, the improbability of rain. There is no answer, just something that waits silently for your coming, like the stranger you sometimes recognize and long to greet. A yearning and a regret, equal in their patience, to be blessed, then blown into the wind like a seed, traveling toward the light. The blessed day. Bring the blessed day straight into your anxious heart. Let no buzz, no hum, no little plastic device come between you and the day. If you are trapped inside a cubicle of artificial space, and the outside world disappears into a minor beige, reach for the passion of purple as it whispers into dusk. Inhale the fresh smell of cut hay scattered tenderly in the wind. Weep for the woman who stands alone on the magnificent earth in a temple of white remembrance. Do you have any questions? Any questions at all? I have to say that also there's a full circle here because I get to go back to Mexico and present this book in March. So that's something that gives maybe some meaning to it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How close to the 9/11 did you write? It was 9/11 poems.
Right at 9/11, yeah.
It feels that way, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because a lot of people wrote poems. When I show those poems to, I think Christopher Merrill, you might know him. He goes, yeah, a lot of people wrote poems about 9/11. I'm like, yeah, we wrote poems about one of the most startling and unbelievable things that's happened in the United States. But yeah, that was a good, yeah.
Very, very immediate. So it felt like-
Yeah, you could probably feel that. And I was so against that invasion, so that was part of the feeling. Any other questions? Thank you for coming. I have books, and I'll sign them with very personal messages. No.